Welcome to LABrary. I'm Miss Kathleen. I hope you're all having a great week so far. Today, we are going to talk about a concept called density. Density is something that we automatically know a little something about because we interact with objects all day long. Density is a word used in physics to talk about mass per unit of volume. What does that mean? It describes how heavy something is depending on its makeup. An easy object example is showing you these two hearts. What is similar about them? Well, they're about the same size and they're the same shape, aren't they? They're both hearts. Anything else? Well, one's purple and one is different shades of blue, so that's not similar. Can you tell by looking at them what each of the hearts is made of? Let me show you closely. Can you tell if they weigh the same by looking at them or by the way that I'm holding them? They're the same size and shape, right? So they should weigh about the same, correct? If you were to pick up these two objects, not knowing what they were made of, you would be able to tell immediately about their respective weights, something about them. You'd be able to tell which one was heavier. The human body is kind of amazing that way. We can figure it out without even thinking about it. Our body sends messages to our brain, letting us know how heavy something is. Sometimes we are fooled. If you ever tried to pick up a dumbbell or any kind of a weight, and you might think that it looks small, but it's so dense, its mass per volume, its density is so high that it looks a lot less heavy than it actually is. It looks a lot lighter. That's the right way of saying that. So our bodies can measure relative density of objects as soon as we move them or attempt to pick them up. So one heart is made of solid quartz, a mineral, and the other one, this purple heart, is made of Play-Doh. So can you predict which one is going to be heavier? That's an awfully big Play-Doh heart, isn't it? Okay, so here is one more interesting thing about the Play-Doh. Right now, it's made up of several things, one of them being water. We all know what happens to Play-Doh when we leave it out. You leave the lid off the jar of your Play-Doh overnight, you know that it dries out. So what's happening there? The liquid is evaporating, isn't it? So if I left this purple heart out uncovered and it became dried out, do you predict it would weigh more or less or the same as when it was squishy? So it would become harder, right? And very solid eventually, like the quartz heart, right? Does that mean that it would weigh the same or closer to the weight of the quartz heart? It seems like it might weigh more because now it would be dried out and hard, right? But the opposite is true. The evaporated water added mass or weight to the Play-Doh heart. And now that the water has evaporated, the mass per unit of volume or the density has changed. So another way of saying that is the one that weighs more of the two hearts has more matter packed into it. So it's denser. Okay, a good way to tell if something is more or less dense than water is to put it in water. We're all familiar with taking a bath, right? Certain things float in the water, don't they? If you have a big heavy bar of soap, it usually sinks to the bottom, right? But if you have like a little sliver, it might float, especially if it's not a dense bar of soap, if it has like a lot of bubbles in it. What about a rubber ducky? Does it sink or float? Okay, so we are going to do a simple experiment with oil and water and food coloring. I want you to experiment with food coloring and I want you to predict whether the food coloring will mix with the oil or the water or both. You can use several different food coloring colors. I have green because that's what I have a lot of.
So here we are back in my kitchen lab. We have a glass, oil, water, and some food coloring. What kind of experiment do you think we might be able to do with these items? Remember, we are learning about density. Okay, I'm going to add a couple more things in. So adding some salt to our experiment, adding some effervescent tablets to our experiment is going to give us a different effect. Remember, we're studying about density. And so in this experiment, we want to learn which is heavier, water or oil. So if we mix the oil and the water together and put in some drops of food coloring, I happen to have a preponderance of green food coloring, so I'm choosing green. Use whatever color you have. If we put those together, they will have an effect in our glass. What kind of effect do you predict they will have together in the glass? Okay, and then if we add salt to our mixture in here, what do you think will happen with the salt? And then if we add an effervescent tablet, what will happen to our mixture? So your challenge this week is to figure out, by doing this experiment, what happens with the oil and the water and the food coloring, color of your choice, and then maybe add in a drop of soap. See if anything changes. Here's a different liquid. You could try syrup. See if it makes any difference.